My father-in-law did this to me on the kitchen table, a real infidelity story of 4x6 love. My name is Claire, and I'm 30 years old. I've built a life filled with comfort and routine, sharing a cozy home with my husband, Mark. On the outside, we seemed like the perfect couple, constantly surrounded by laughter and affection. But beneath the surface, an unsettling undercurrent flowed through our lives, one that I had been trying to ignore. Mark's family had always been a significant part of our lives, and his father, Richard, was a larger-than-life figure. At 55, Richard possessed a magnetic charm, always drawing people to him with his engaging stories and his deep, booming laughter. He was the kind of man who could command a room, and somehow he ended up at ours more often than not, bringing with him a vibrant energy that lit up our kitchen. The kitchen table had long been the heart of our home, a multicolored mosaic of memories, laughter, and the occasional disagreement. It was where I had prepared countless meals, shared intimate moments with Mark, and now it was about to become the backdrop for a different kind of memory. One evening, I found myself alone in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner while Mark worked late. I hummed softly, lost in thought, when Richard walked in unannounced, his presence suddenly making the air feel charged. "Hey, Claire," he said, casually leaning against the doorframe, his blue eyes sparkling with mischief. "Need a hand?" I smiled nervously. He always had a way of making me feel both flattered and uneasy. He stepped closer, pulling up a chair at the table. I handed him a knife and laughed it off. "You really should leave the cooking to the professionals." As we chopped and talked, the conversation drifted from harmless banter to something deeper. Richard began sharing stories of his younger days, the way he spoke with nostalgia, laced with regret. I noticed the way he looked at me. Intense, searching. "I've always admired how you handle everything, Claire," he said, his tone shifting. "You're strong and capable, and you make my sons so happy." A blush crept up my cheeks as I glanced down at the cutting board. "Thanks, Richard. That means a lot coming from you." Time slipped away, and before I knew it, the shadows of dusk had crept into the kitchen. Richard leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "I sometimes wonder if you know how special you are." I felt my heart race, a thrill and apprehension congealing in my veins. "Richard, I started," panic pulsing through me. This was all wrong, yet a part of me was entranced. Before I could finish my sentence, Richard reached out, his hand brushing against mine. Something electric surged between us, an unspeakable tension that felt like the culmination of years of unacknowledged feelings. I pulled my hand back, but my breath was quickening, and my thoughts were spiraling. "What if," he said, his voice low, vulnerable, "we allowed ourselves to feel this? Just for a moment." My heart raced for reasons I couldn't comprehend. His words hung in the air, daring me to cross an unthinkable line. I was terrified and exhilarated, feelings that had been locked deep within me surfacing. I wanted to push him away, to scream that this was wrong, but the way he looked at me made me hesitate. "What about Mark?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Mark doesn't know what we share, Claire," Richard replied, his voice thick with emotion. "He doesn't see you the way I do." In that instant, the world outside faded. It was just the two of us, the kitchen table, and the burgeoning fire between us. Before I could stop myself, I leaned in closer, our lips almost touching, hearts pounding as the tension suffocated the room. Suddenly, a crash broke the spell. Mark burst through the door, his laughter echoing through the kitchen. Time froze as Richard and I recoiled, the moments of intimacy shattering like glass. "What's going on?" Mark asked, his eyebrow raised, oblivious to the charged silence around him. "Just cooking together," I said quickly, my voice higher than usual. Richard straightened up, looking composed. "Right, just cooking," he echoed, the glimmer of something unresolved still flickering in his eyes. Later that evening, while Mark settled into his usual routine on the couch, I couldn't shake off the encounter. I was entangled in a web of confusion, an invisible thread connecting me to Richard. What had just happened? What did it mean? As nights turned into restless days, the tension only grew stronger, yet we maintained the facade. Every family gathering, every meal around that kitchen table was a reminder of the secret we shared, an unacknowledged yearning that simmered beneath the surface. The weeks dragged on, and our stolen glances became more frequent, our conversations charged with unspoken words. Each laugh with Mark felt like a betrayal to what was happening silently between Richard and me. One night, as the autumn air turned crisp, I found myself alone at the kitchen table again, the remnants of dinner pushed aside. And then, as if pulled by an unseen force, Richard appeared once more. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he confessed, his voice thick with urgency. "Can we just be honest for a moment?" In that instant, the weight of what we were feeling bore down on me. The truth was undeniable. There was a fire between us that couldn't be extinguished, an ache for something we both knew was wrong. Richard stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine once more, igniting the same spark that had consumed us before. "Claire," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin, "we need to talk about this." As I looked into his eyes, I realized I no longer wanted to hide. Emotions overflowed as I pulled him closer, the consequences fading into the background. We leaned into each other, the world around us disappearing, and in that moment, we surrendered to the forbidden pull that had drawn us together. The kitchen table, once a symbol of safety and belonging, became our secret sanctuary, a place where love thrived in the shadows, fueled by desire, confusion, and a bond that would forever change our lives. But I knew this was only the beginning. The thrill of our secret was intoxicating, but the storm of reality loomed on the horizon, threatening to unravel everything we held dear. This story touches on themes of love, betrayal, and the complexities of relationships, ultimately revealing the emotional turmoil that accompanies such decisions. Let me know what you think, or if you'd like to explore a different angle.